expenditure side as well.
Mobility Act. None of you are raising an amendment to a suspended act. Itself would be so Daniel should expect a review of taxation.
Well, speaking ahead of the budget presentation, economist Dr. Eduusu Sarkodie says government should review upwards taxes on telcos and mining sectors to increase its revenue and to cut down on taxes on struggling sectors such as manufacturing. He, however, says other cost-cutting measures should be announced to reduce burdens on the public purse.
I think a number of issues have come about in terms of whether there will be new taxes or not. I don't expect the introduction of any new taxes, and if nothing at all, if there will be a new tax, then it should be rather look at the areas that are doing well in the economy and tax them. Of course, because we know it's an election year, so we expect the government expenditure to go up. I would advise that the expenditure should be on productive sectors like the agriculture sector, because we want to ensure food security. Like the energy sector, you want to ensure energy security. Like the manufacturing sector, you want to ensure that people get jobs. Like the tourism sector and then the sports, where we have a number of our young people really patronizing those sectors. So there are a number of reforms in the sector to grow the economy, to create the needed jobs, and to spend on prudent, enterprises. And they continue to provide safety nets to cushion the poor and the vulnerable in society.
Well, government has granted 23% salary increment to public sector workers for the year 2024. The salary increment will cover January to June, while another increment of 25% will be implemented between July and December. National Tripartite Committee also approved 22% increment for daily minimum wage from 14 cedis 88 pesos for 2023 to 18 cedis for 2024. This decision, he said, was arrived at taking into consideration the current economic situation in the country.
At the end of our negotiations at the tripartite level, we agreed that the minimum wage be reviewed upwards by 22%, i.e. from 14.88 cedis to 18.15 cedis. Subsequently, the Public Sector Joint Negotiation Committee between all unions within the public space under the single spine and government also entered into negotiations to determine the national base pay. I'm happy to report to you that in some few minutes past, after a very difficult meeting, taking the current state of the economy into consideration and also taking into consideration the agreement that as a nation we have with the IMF, and in making sure that we stay on course in achieving all the targets that we've set to achieve for ourselves and also to get all the benchmarks right, we have concluded that the national base pay be increased by 23% between 1st January 2024 to 30th June 2024, and subsequently an additional 2% increment will be added to the 23%, making it 25%. So from July to December 2024. So in terms of absolute figures, till the end of this year, the national base pay will be 14.74 cedis. But from January through to 30th June, it will move from 14.74 to 18.13, and subsequently move to 18.43.
We'll stay on the labor front, and leadership of organized labor says they agreed with government on the 23% and 25% respectively for 2024 because of the current economic hardships in the country and the fact that Ghana is on an IMF program.
We are confident that when the time comes for government to implement, there will not be any hassle. And I would like to assure you, as organized labor, this country is for all of us. And that is why we have agreed with government. And I want to advise Honorable Minister that we should continue to work together because we still have issues to resolve around wages for single span salary, those who are on the single span salary. And I'm hoping that this negotiation will not end those discussions. We should continue to discuss and agree and resolve the issues before the next round of negotiations.
Government upon government, whichever color it is, have always complained, no money, no money. They've given us all sorts of reasons. They have jaws, but we have resolved that this must change. Next round of negotiations, government should have enough money to even give us double living wage. And to do that, I think we have to look at the wastage in our system. We as labor, we are not going to wait for another year before we start talking about these things. I think we start talking about these things now. And we have resolved that any which way, freedom must come.
Let's do some stories on health now. Minister for Health, Kweku Agyeman-Manu, has come under intense criticism after informing Parliament that the Finance Ministry has secured some 50 million euros in local funding for the reconstruction of the La General Hospital. Now, the minority, however, criticized the minister for failing to provide clear timelines on when work will resume. A report by parliamentary correspondent Komla Kluche.
In July 2020, the La General Hospital was demolished after hospital's administration in 2015 reported severe structural problems. President Akufo-Addo on August 10, 2020 cut short for the commencement of the construction of the La General Hospital redevelopment project, but work has yet to start. Residents of La and its environs have been angered over the undue delay. The government has been justifying the demolition and the delay thereafter.
The contractor who was supposed to do the project is the person who actually pulled down the facility. We had handed over site. He needed to clear the place to start new work, and there was no way that we can do that hospital on that same land without pulling down the facility. And that is how come the project was pulled down. We've never seen this type of hiccups up and down in managing any project in the health sector so far as since I became Minister for Health. So we have had serious challenges with La General Hospital. Through the efforts of the three-man committee, the Minister for Finance has now identified funds locally to continue the project with the same civil works scope but a reduced price of 50 million euro. The contractor indicates that once the funds hit the account, they will remobilize to site within 1 week. There are materials on site worth over $8 million that the contractor has put there to recommence work with. They were mobilizing, they actually mobilized, they were on site when suspension happened. Now we have all these materials there, there are very few skeleton staff on the site, and now that they are going to get back to site, we believe the project will move very quickly. We trust that this project will be carried out in earnest and completed within the 24-month duration as originally stated.
And I thought that the minister was coming to give us hope. Mr. Speaker, the statement by the minister gives no hope. In fact, he has actually said nothing. Mr. Speaker, by the actions and inactions of the government, it clearly means that they were not committed to the project.
Both the majority leader and trade minister in the past week have contradicted themselves on exactly what has caused the delay in the project. former minority leader and chief whip, took the minister on over his lack of certainty on the project.
So when you say he has identified funds, is it from the consolidated fund or you are coming with a loan? If you are coming with a loan, should we expect 50 million euro or 68 million euro as was approved? So, Minister, come well. The people of La deserve better than what you have come to do.
Honorable Haruna Ibisu, when you make reference to infrastructure fund and you are commending former President John Mahama for the infrastructure fund, Agenda 111, what did you do with the infrastructure fund you so claim to have set up? What did you do with it? We dreamt of Agenda 111. You should rather applaud us for this. I'm not seeking to raise the temperature unnecessarily. But let's commend where commendation is due. You get up on your feet and run down a minister who has come to tell you the truth. That cannot be honesty.
Now on to some more stories. The reintroduction of road tolls is likely to feature in the 2024 budget. The government stopped the collection of road tolls in November 2021 after presenting the 2022 budget. In 2023 budget, the Minister of Finance announced the return of road tolls on some selected roads as part of revenue measures. Now, ahead of the presentation of the 2024 budget, my colleague George Queening has been interacting with some motorists, pedestrians and hawkers at one of the two toll booths in Accra Tema motorway.
Before the presentation of the 2022 budget in 2021, which captured the total abolishment of road tolls in the country, facilities like the toll booth would have been choked with vehicles trying to pay their tolls whilst plying public roads and bridges like the Accra Tema motorway. Government made some justifications for arriving at this very decision. Some of them included heavy traffic at the toll booths and also the conducive environment created for the hawking business. And when the toll system was scrapped, the e-levy was introduced. Unfortunately, government failed to accrue the needed revenue. It's a reason this year has announced the reintroduction of road tolls. But we are here to really engage motorists, to engage pedestrians and even people that used to hawk at one of the toll booths on the Accra Tema motorway. What they make of this decision by government?
They should bring the toll booths back again because it's helpful. They've abandoned it for some times now. It has no use. And then in other way, it helps the disabled because I think before they abandoned it, there were these disabled guys that they work inside. It's going to help them and it's going to create opportunity for them too as well.
What was the initial reason behind the cancellation of the road tolls to introduce e-levy? Has the e-levy been helpful so far? No, we are not seeing any improvement. Look at the state of the motorway, very bad. So if they should bring back the toll, I think that revenue can be used to cater for the motorway.
E-levy and you'll be an e-levy. Toll the automatically will be out here, but driver no because you're too much.
Everyone indirectly pay road tolls, unlike the e-levy. So it is good to bring it back.
A major question pedestrians and motorists want an answer to is that what would happen to e-levy if the road tolls are reintroduced? But it's just a few hours for the presentation of the 2024 budget. And so let's wait and see whether or not the reintroduction of road tolls will be captured. George Queening, TV3 News, Accra.
Let's do some politics now. The governing New Patriotic Party's vetting committee in the Greater Accra region has promised to deliver a fair and transparent process that will result in an acceptable outcome for all aspirants and their supporters. Here's a report from day one of the vetting of MPP parliamentary aspirants in orphan constituencies in the Greater Accra region.
The vetting grounds could easily pass for a carnival. Chants, cheers, and songs. Over the next 2 days, 2 vetting committees will grill aspirants to ensure that they meet the party's standards. This is a crucial step before aspirants are given the all-clear to run in the December 2nd, 2023 parliamentary primaries of the NPP. Greater Accra Regional Secretary of the party, Odalai Parker, outlines modalities for the process.
Although we have a score sheet, we have their names, we score them, and after the score, we call them, and then we let them do their ballots. Because there and there, because we have been tabulating there. Immediately, then the committee meets to discuss. After our discussion, then we invite the aspirants. We look into it. If there should be any problem, we will talk to those involved. But so far, with those ones that we've done, we haven't had any issue. So all we do is that we call them back and then we do the balloting.
Some of the aspirants spoke to TV3 News after appearing before the committee.
I believe today is a day of destiny for all of Lejokuku. I believe that God himself has graced these hallowed grounds at the vetting. I saw unity and I saw a sense of purpose and a determination, not just for myself, but all of the delegates and all of the party members here, NPP, and Lejokuku.
I take it as a fresh elections. The way I approach, the strategies I approach for the one who has been MP before is the same approach. It's the same approach I use for the new ones. But we believe that with what we've told the delegates and the vision we have, is something that's going to move the constituency forward.
If we are able to choose a candidate who is much more appealing, both to the opposition NDC and within our own political party, we will be able to hold the seat and hold this for quite a while.
The NPP will be vetting aspirants in 16 Northern constituencies in the Greater Accra region over a 2-day period. It's more or less like a party carnival atmosphere right here at the grounds where the vetting for the new Patriotic Party aspirants for its orphan constituencies in the Greater Accra region is taking place. Duke Opoku, TV3 News, Lejokuku, Accra.
Now, former Vice President of the United States, Al Gore, has called on developed countries to support African countries in addressing climate changes on the continent. Speaking at an exclusive interview with Alfredo Kansi, he indicated that changes in the climate affects all humans and should be tackled from all fronts.
You talked about that fossil fuel colonialism. You talked about that fossil fuel colonialism. You spoke about the World Bank being a part of this fossil fuel colonialism that's being pushed, especially with Africa being a victim of that strategy. What do you mean by that?
Well, that is one area where we have had some progress. The former head of the World Bank was a climate denier. In league with the fossil fuel polluters. But we now have a new head of the World Bank, Ajay Banga, who understands the need to solve the climate crisis, and he is moving boldly to implement new policies. But the World Bank also needs an infusion of more money from the wealthy countries of the world, and the World Bank, in cooperation with other multilateral development banks, should help to organize a program of debt reduction, debt cancellation, debt relief for African nations in return for agreements to protect nature and to adopt better climate solutions, because the indebtedness of African nations has risen in the wake of the pandemic and in the wake of Russia's sadistic invasion of Ukraine, which has pushed food prices much higher. So we also need reforms in the global system of allocating capital so that countries in West Africa, for example, don't have to pay interest rates that are a multiple of the interest rates paid by nations in North America and Europe.
And that's how we wrap up the 6 a.m. news here on TV3. My name is Judith Brown. We take a short break and we're back with the rest of New Day.